The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning on a Tuesday morning in October 2087. They hung there like dark clouds, blocking out the sun over every major city across the planet. The ships were enormous, each one the size of a small mountain, and they made no sound as they floated in the air. Admiral Zhou stood on the command deck of his flagship, looking down at the blue and green world below. He had conquered 43 planets in his long career, and this one looked no different from the others. His scouts had told him the creatures living here were weak and divided, fighting among themselves instead of working together. "How many ships do we have?" he asked his second-in-command. 300 warships, Admiral. More than enough for this primitive world." Zhou nodded. The beings down there had barely learned to travel between planets. They still used chemical rockets and had only reached their own moon a few times. This would be easy. On Earth, Dr. Kim Jun was working, late in his laboratory in Seoul when the first ships appeared. He was studying new ways to create clean energy when his assistant ran into the room screaming about monsters in the sky. Jun looked out the window and saw the massive black shape hovering over the city like a storm cloud that would never move. His daughter Hannah was at school. She was only 8 years old and loved to draw pictures of spaceships and aliens. Now real aliens were here, and Jun felt his heart racing with fear. The attack began at exactly noon, Earth time. Bright red beams of light shot down from the alien ships, striking military bases, government buildings, and communication towers. The beams were silent but deadly, turning concrete and steel into dust in seconds. In Busan, Sergeant Park Min was training new soldiers when the sky lit up red above them. He watched his base explode around him, saw his men disappear in flashes of light. The ground shook under his feet as buildings collapsed. His radio went dead. All communications across the planet stopped working within minutes. Park Min crawled out from under a pile of broken concrete, his uniform torn and bloody. Around him everything was destroyed. The alien ships floated overhead like they owned the sky now. He still had his rifle, though he doubted it would do any good against creatures who could destroy entire cities from space. The aliens had a plan, and they followed it perfectly. First, they destroyed all human weapons and military forces. Then, they took out power plants, internet servers, and anything that helped people communicate with each other. Finally, they landed their smaller ships in every major city and began collecting humans like farmers gathering crops. Lee Sunmi was a computer programmer working in an office tower in Seoul when the first landing ships arrived. These ships were smaller than the ones in the sky, but still huge compared to anything humans had built. They landed in parks and parking lots, and tall grey creatures came out wearing metal suits. The aliens were thin and moved strangely, like they were used to different gravity. They carried weapons that looked like silver sticks, but could turn a person into ash with one shot. They walked through the streets, pointing their weapons at anyone who tried to run. Sunmi hid under her desk and watched through the window as the creatures herded her co-workers into groups. The aliens seemed to know exactly what they were doing, like they had done this many times before. They moved efficiently, without wasting time or energy. In his laboratory, Dr. Kim Jun tried to reach his daughter's school, but all the phones were dead. The internet was gone. Even the emergency radio stations had stopped broadcasting. He looked out at the city and saw smoke rising from dozens of locations. Alien ships moved between the buildings like sharks swimming through water. The creatures had destroyed everything humans used to organize themselves. No governments, no armies, no way for different groups to work together. It was smart, Junie realized. Without communication, humans were just scattered individuals trying to survive alone. The aliens broadcast their message on every remaining screen and speaker in the world. Their translator machines turned their words into every human language. The message was simple: surrender completely or die. Hand over all weapons, report to collection centers. Obey all orders without question. Admiral Zhou watched the human cities burn and felt satisfied. His forces had taken control of the planet in less than 6 hours. Soon they would begin moving the survivors to work camps on other worlds. The Chamas resources of this planet would feed the Vorthak Empire for generations. But something bothered him about the reports from the surface. His soldiers said the humans were not acting like other conquered species. Instead of giving up hope, many seemed angry. Instead of accepting defeat, they were asking questions about the alien technology. Instead of obeying orders, they were watching and learning. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving strange signals from the surface. The humans are still trying to contact each other, even without their technology." Tekvar dismissed the concern. Every species tried to resist at first. Within a few weeks, the humans would accept their new reality and become useful slaves, just like all the others. He had no idea how wrong he was. 3 weeks after the invasion, strange things began happening that Admiral Tekvar did not understand. His supply convoys started disappearing. First one truck vanished near Seoul, then another near Busan. His soldiers found no bodies, no wreckage, no signs of fighting. The vehicles and their alien crews simply stopped existing. In the underground subway tunnels beneath Seoul, Dr. Kim, Jun worked by the light of stolen alien power cells. His hands were burned and scarred from handling the foreign technology, but he did not stop. Around him, other survivors watched as he connected alien crystals to human car batteries using wires from old computers. Jun had lost his daughter Hana in the first attack. The school had taken a direct hit from the red beams. Now, her memory drove him to work 18 hours a day, taking apart every piece of alien equipment he could find. The creature's technology was advanced, but it followed rules that human science could understand. More importantly, it could be improved. "Professor, look at this," whispered Choi Min-ho, a young man who had been studying electrical engineering before the invasion. He held up a small device that glowed with blue light. "I combined their power source with a microwave transmitter. It makes the same energy beam as their weapons, but stronger." Jun smiled for the first time in weeks. Humans had always been good at taking other people's inventions and making them better. Now they were doing it with alien technology. Above ground, Park Min moved through the ruins of Busan like a ghost. He had learned to avoid the alien patrols by studying their patterns. The creatures were efficient but predictable. They followed the same routes at the same times every day. They never changed their methods, even when those methods stopped working. Park Min's group had grown from 5 survivors to 23 fighters. They came from different backgrounds: soldiers, police officers, farmers, factory workers. But they all shared one thing: they refused to give up. Each person taught the others something new about survival, about fighting, about hope. "The aliens think war is like a machine," Park Min explained to his newest recruit, a teenager named Song Ki-tae, who had lost his family in the bombing. "They push a button and expect the same result every time. But humans are not machines. We change, we adapt, we surprise." The resistance fighters had begun using the aliens' own technology against them. They would attack a patrol, take their weapons, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. Then they would take the captured equipment to people like Dr. Jun, who could make it work even better than before. Lee Sun-mi had found her calling in the ruins of Seoul's technology district. Before the invasion, she had been a software programmer working on mobile apps. Now she was breaking into alien computer systems using techniques that no alien had ever seen before. The creature's communication network was complex, but not impossible to understand. Sun-mi discovered that their security systems were designed to stop other aliens, not humans. Human thinking was too different, too chaotic for the alien programs to predict. "I'm inside their network," she announced to the group, of survivors hiding in an abandoned office building. "I can see their patrol schedules, their supply routes, even their personal messages." With this information, the resistance groups across the planet began working together in ways that amazed even themselves. A successful attack in Tokyo would be copied in London within hours. A new weapon design from New York would appear in Cairo by the next day. Humans were sharing knowledge faster than the aliens could respond to it. But the most surprising development was happening in the alien prison camps. Jung So-young, a former airline pilot, had been captured during the first week of the invasion. She was being held with thousands of other humans in a facility outside Seoul, waiting to be shipped to slave camps on other worlds. Instead of losing hope, Jung So-young began talking to her guards. The alien soldiers were curious about human behavior, and she was happy to explain. She told them about human art, music, and literature. She explained concepts like freedom, dignity, and love. "Why do you fight when you cannot win?" asked one guard, a young alien named Vector who seemed different from the others. "Because winning is not the only reason to fight," Jung So-young replied. "Sometimes you fight because it is right. Sometimes you fight to protect others. Sometimes you fight to show that you are alive." These conversations had an unexpected effect. Some of the alien guards began questioning their orders. They started asking why they were conquering other species instead of learning from them. A few even began helping human prisoners escape. Admiral Thekvar received reports that made no sense to him. Human resistance was growing stronger instead of weaker. The creatures were using alien technology in ways that his own engineers said was impossible. Worse, some of his soldiers were starting to refuse orders. "Admiral," his second-in-command reported nervously, "the humans are not behaving like previous conquered species. They seem to be getting more dangerous as time passes." Thekvar studied the reports from the surface. Supply convoys destroyed by weapons that should not exist. Communication networks hacked by creatures who barely understood space travel. Soldiers defecting because humans had convinced them to change sides. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Thekvar began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. By the 4th month, Admiral Thekvar had stopped sleeping well. Every morning brought new reports that made less sense than the day before. His mighty invasion force was slowly being picked apart by creatures who should have been slaves by now. The humans were not just surviving, they were becoming more dangerous with each passing week. The breaking point came on a cold December morning when the impossible happened. A full Vorthak patrol unit, 24 soldiers with advanced weapons, hand armor, simply vanished in downtown Seoul. No distress signals, no bodies. No trace they had ever existed except for scorch marks on the ground that spelled out words in the human language. "We are learning." Deep in the subway tunnels, Dr. Kim Jun had built something that defied everything the aliens knew about technology. Using parts from 17 different alien devices, human electronics, and pure determination, he had created a workshop that could produce weapons better than anything in the Vorthak arsenal. "Professor, the new energy rifles are ready," announced Choi Min-ho, his young assistant who had become expert at combining human creativity with alien science. The weapons looked strange, part alien crystal technology, part human engineering, part imagination made real. June picked up one of the rifles and felt its perfect balance. It was lighter than the alien version, but twice as powerful. More importantly, it had features that no alien weapon possessed. A setting that could disable enemy equipment without killing, a mode that could cut through alien armor like paper, and a safety system that prevented it from being used against its owner. "How many do we have?" June asked. 200 finished, with more being built in workshops across the city. The plans have been shared with resistance groups worldwide. Above ground, Park Min's fighters had evolved into something the aliens had never encountered before. They moved like water, flowing around alien defenses and striking where least expected. His group now numbered over 300, including former soldiers, civilians, and even a few alien defectors who had chosen to fight alongside humans. "The key is unpredictability," Park Min explained to Song Ki-tae, who had become one of his best fighters. "The aliens plan for every possibility they can imagine. But they cannot imagine like humans do. We think of solutions they never consider. Their latest operation proved this point perfectly. Instead of attacking an alien supply depot directly, they had convinced the local alien commander that his own troops were planning a rebellion. The paranoid commander had destroyed his own supplies and arrested half his soldiers before realizing he had been tricked. Lee Sun-mi had accomplished something that alien computer experts declared impossible. From her hidden command center in an abandoned Seoul skyscraper, she had not only broken into the Vorthak military network, she had taken control of parts of it. Alien supply ships now followed routes she programmed. Enemy communications contained messages she inserted. Some alien units received orders that came directly from her keyboard. "Target acquired," she announced to resistance cells across the planet. 3 alien transport ships will be landing at Incheon port tomorrow at dawn. They think they are delivering reinforcements, but they are actually bringing us presents. The presents were advanced alien manufacturing equipment that Sunmi had tricked them into delivering. Within hours of the ship's landing, human engineers had the machines working to produce weapons, vehicles, and communication devices that combined the best of both species' technology. But the most shocking development was happening in the prison camps. So-Young had done more than escape. She had convinced an entire alien garrison to switch sides. Over 40 Vorthak soldiers now fought alongside human resistance fighters, sharing their knowledge of alien weaknesses and tactics. They showed me what I could become, explained Vector, the young alien who had been So-Young's guard. For my whole life, I was told that conquest was the only way to prove strength. But humans have shown me that real strength comes from protecting others, not enslaving them. The alien defectors brought valuable intelligence. They revealed that the Vorthak Empire was not as strong as it appeared. Many species in their territory were forced into service, waiting for any chance to rebel. The invasion of Earth was supposed to be quick and easy, providing resources for more difficult conquests elsewhere. Admiral Zhou is under pressure from his superiors, Vector told the resistance leaders. If he cannot conquer Earth soon, he will be replaced by someone more ruthless. This information led to the most daring operation yet attempted. Ko Min-sik, a former diplomat who had lost his entire family in the first attack, proposed something that seemed like madness. They would capture an alien capital ship. The Vorthak think in terms of power and hierarchy, Min-sik explained to the gathered resistance leaders. If we can take one of their major vessels, it will shake their confidence more than destroying 100 smaller ships. The plan required coordination between resistance groups worldwide, precise timing, and technology that had been considered fantasy just months before. But humans had learned to make impossible things possible. Admiral Zhou stared at the reports, flooding his command center. Human resistance groups had turned Earth's weather into a weapon, creating storms that grounded his aircraft. They had built communication networks that worked better under attack than his own did in peacetime. Most disturbing of all, they had begun broadcasting messages to other alien species throughout the galaxy, inviting them to rebel against Vorthak rule. "Sir," his aide whispered nervously, "some of our troops are requesting transfers to other sectors. They say fighting humans is changing them." For the first time in 3 centuries of conquest, Admiral Zhou wondered if retreat might be the wisest option. The attack came at dawn on a Tuesday that changed everything. Admiral Zhou was drinking his morning stimulant when alarms began, screaming throughout his flagship. On his command screen, he watched something that should have been impossible. Humans were boarding the Vorthak heavy cruiser Dominator above the Pacific Ocean. "How are they getting through our shields?" Zhou demanded. His tactical officer's voice shook as he replied, "Sir, they are not breaking through our shields. They are turning them off from the inside. Someone has given them our security codes." The someone was Vector and 12 other Vorthak soldiers who had chosen humanity over their own empire. They had spent weeks memorizing patrol schedules, security protocols, and weak points in their former colleagues' defenses. Now they moved through the ship's corridors alongside human fighters, opening doors that should have remained sealed forever. So-Young led the human assault team with calm precision. The former airline pilot had learned to fly captured alien shuttles better than their original owners. She moved through the ship's passages like she had been born there, her team following close behind. "Bridge secured," came the report over her radio. Song Ki-tai, the young fighter who had grown from a scared teenager into a skilled warrior, had taken control of the ship's command center, using tactics that combined human creativity with alien defector knowledge. "Engineering secured," reported another voice. Park Min had led his team through maintenance shafts too small for most aliens, emerging in critical areas where they could disable the ship's weapons and engines. But the real victory was happening in the ship's computer core, where Lee Sunmi worked her magic on alien technology. Her fingers moved across controls that had never been designed for human hands, her mind racing through security systems that had never encountered human logic. "I am downloading everything," she announced. "Fleet movements, supply schedules, military codes, and something else. Admiral, they have files on 47 other species they have conquered, complete records of how they broke each world's resistance. The implications hit everyone at once. The Vorthak were not just invading Earth, they were following a detailed playbook that had worked on dozens of other planets. But that playbook had never encountered a species like humanity. Dr. Kim Jun received the data transmission in his underground laboratory and immediately understood its importance. The alien conquest manual revealed their greatest weakness. They expected every species to react the same way. When faced with overwhelming force, civilizations were supposed to surrender or die fighting heroically but uselessly. Humans had done neither. Instead, they had adapted, learned, and evolved faster than the Vorthak could respond. The aliens' own records showed that no previous species had ever reverse-engineered their technology, convinced their soldiers to defect, or turn their own tactics against them. "We are not just winning," Jun said to his assembled team. "We are breaking their entire system of conquest." Aboard the captured ship, Jung So-young made contact with Admiral Thekvar directly. The conversation that followed would be remembered by both species for generations. "Admiral," she said, her voice calm and clear, "we need to talk." The transmission showed something that shattered everything Thekvar thought he knew about warfare. On his screen, he saw humans and Vorthak working together as equals. Former enemies were sharing knowledge, building new technologies, and creating possibilities that neither species could achieve alone. "This is impossible," Thekvar whispered. "Conquered species do not cooperate with their conquerors. They resist or they submit. There is no other option." "You are wrong," Jung So-young replied. "There is a third option that you never considered. We can become something new together, something better than either of us alone." The proof was all around her. In the background of the transmission, Thekvar could see human engineers working alongside Vorthak technicians to improve the ship's systems. He watched as Kominsik, the former diplomat, discussed philosophy with alien soldiers who had begun questioning everything they had been taught about conquest and power. "Your empire conquers worlds by destroying what makes each species unique," Jung So-young continued. "But uniqueness is not a weakness to be eliminated. It is a strength to be celebrated. Each different way of thinking makes all of us stronger." Reports flooded into Thekvar's command center that confirmed his worst fears. Human resistance cells had shared the captured intelligence with liberation movements on every world the Vorthak controlled. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly rising up, using human-developed tactics and weapons. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely controlled panic, "we are receiving rebellion reports from 37 different systems. The humans have been broadcasting instructions on how to fight us to every species in our territory. But the most devastating report came from his own medical staff. Vorthak soldiers who had fought against humans were showing signs of what the doctors called philosophical contamination. They were asking questions about the morality of conquest. They were requesting transfers to peaceful assignments. Some were even asking to defect. The humans are not just defeating us militarily," the chief medical officer explained. "They are defeating us ideologically. They are showing our soldiers that there are alternatives to conquest, alternatives that many find more appealing than our current path." Admiral Thekvar sat in his command chair and finally understood the terrible truth. The humans had not just captured one of his ships, they had captured something far more valuable and dangerous. They had captured the idea that conquest was not the only path to strength, that cooperation could be more powerful than domination. For the first time in his long career, he began to understand why his troops were requesting transfers away from Earth. The humans were not just fighting back, they were offering something better. The final moment came not with explosions or battles, but with silence. Admiral Thekvar stood on his command bridge, staring at reports that told the story of an empire crumbling from within. Half his fleet had requested immediate transfer to other sectors. The other half was reporting increasing incidents of soldiers refusing to fire on human targets. The breaking point arrived when humans launched what they called Operation Open Hand. Instead of attacking the remaining Vorthak installations, they sent ambassadors. Not warriors with weapons, but ordinary people with extraordinary courage, who walked up to alien bases and simply asked to talk. Ko Minsik stood outside the main Vorthak command center in Seoul, his hands empty and visible. Behind him walked representatives from every nation, every culture, every tribe that called Earth home. Old enemies who had fought each other for centuries now stood together, united by something stronger than their differences. Admiral Thekvar, Minsik spoke into the communication device that Lee Sunmi had built from captured alien technology. "We know you can hear us. We have something to show you." What they showed him changed everything. Across the planet, humans were demonstrating their greatest weapon, not the energy rifles that Dr. Kim Jun had built, not the captured ships that Jung So-young now commanded, but their ability to transform enemies into allies. In Busan, Park Min walked through the streets, with Vector and 20 other Vorthak defectors who now wore modified human uniforms. They were not prisoners or slaves, but partners in building something new. Together they were training joint human-alien security forces to protect both species from those who still believed in conquest. In underground laboratories, Dr. Kim Jun worked alongside Vorthak scientists who had chosen knowledge over war. Their combined research was producing technologies that neither species could have imagined alone. Medical devices that could heal both human and alien injuries, communication systems that could translate not just words, but emotions between different species, and energy sources that could power entire cities without harming the environment. "We could destroy you," Minsik said simply as he looked up at the alien ships hanging in Earth's sky. "We have learned your weaknesses. We have your technology. We have weapons that can penetrate your defenses. But we will not use them unless you force us to." The choice he offered was simple but revolutionary: leave in peace and carry the warning to other worlds, or stay and help build something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Thekvar felt the weight of a decision that would define his legacy. Around him, his officers waited for orders that would not come easily. The reports on his desk told a story that no Vorthak military manual had prepared him for. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "the humans have demonstrated that they can destroy our remaining forces whenever they choose. But they are asking us to choose instead." The Admiral looked at the faces of his crew and saw something he had never seen before in Vorthak eyes: doubt mixed with hope. His soldiers were tired of conquest. They had seen what cooperation could accomplish, and many wanted to be part of it instead of fighting against it. "Prepare the fleet for departure," Thekvar said finally. The words felt strange in his mouth, like speaking in a foreign language. "Signal all ships to begin withdrawal." Procedures. But even as he gave the order, he knew that not all his forces would obey. Ship after ship reported that portions of their crews were requesting permission to remain on Earth. Soldiers, technicians, even some officers wanted to stay and help build the new world that humans were creating. Jung So-young, now commanding. The captured Vorthak cruiser, with a mixed human-alien crew, opened communication channels to ships across the departing fleet. "Any Vorthak who wish to stay are welcome," she broadcast. "We have much to learn from each other." Dr. Kim Jun, his face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes bright with possibility, spoke to the alien scientists who had chosen to remain. "We will build laboratories where both our species can work together. We will discover things that neither of us could find alone." Lee Sunmi established communication networks that connected Earth to distant worlds where other species were watching and learning. The message that went out across the galaxy was simple. The third planet of Sol System offers friendship to all who come in peace. To those who come in war, remember the choice we gave the Vorthak. Admiral Thekvar's fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying more than just defeated soldiers. They carried stories that would spread throughout the Vorthak Empire and beyond. Stories of a species that had turned invasion into invitation, conquest into cooperation, enemies into allies. On worlds where the Vorthak had ruled for centuries, enslaved species heard these stories and began to hope. If the humans could transform their conquerors, perhaps freedom was possible after all. As the last Vorthak ships disappeared from Earth's sky, those who remained behind worked alongside humans to build something unprecedented, a world where different species lived and worked together as equals. It was messy and difficult and sometimes frustrating, but it was also beautiful in ways that conquest could never be. The aliens had invaded Earth expecting easy victory. Instead, they discovered something more powerful than any weapon, the possibility of becoming better than they had ever dreamed possible. And that was why those who left never returned as conquerors, and why those who stayed never wanted to leave at all.